Hello guys, welcome back. It's kind of a really nice night. I just had my spa day and I'm working ahead because it's supposed to be snowing out. I don't know if it is yet or not, but it's one of those perfect days. I had the oven on and used a metal pan. So kind of, as I've been working through Athena and Aphrodite today, it definitely reminded me of Hephaestus, and I get the general impression that he really doesn't care if he gets a video or not, and I know he's not a god that will jump to the front and want all of the attention. He does want love and respect, but at the same time, he doesn't want the normal reaction he gets from people. People are often unkind when they talk about Hephaestus. There are people, though, that worship him in the modern age, especially if you deal with technology or you're still a crafts person. A lot of people will still worship him. Sculptors, craftspeople, people that work with forge, any kind of technology, any kind of arts and crafts, actually, if it's creative, you can thank Hephaestus for his gift. He overlaps with Athena there, and they can be said to have shared a temple together, and he's also, connected to healing in those kind of temples. We honestly don't have too many stories of Hephaestus that portray the god in a good light. Even though we can say today, the depictions of Hephaestus came from an ancient racial memory of what coppersmiths look like, it's still, an unkind portrayal of the gods, because why was this one god, picked on and so mishappen and so deformed and, all these other things. And you have to be careful not to develop kind of like a pity, like that poor thing over there. Whether Hephaestus looks whole to you or Hephaestus does look lame to you, this is still a divine being. And if he doesn't have an attacked body, he certainly has an attacked mind. And he would make, automatons to work in the forge with him. He would make assistants. He would make a sort of wheelchair or chariot for himself so that he could get around just fine. He had plenty of forges. Now, he was brought back to Olympus, as I said before, by Dionysus. But he was brought back to Olympus because, in many of the stories, he was ejected from Olympus either by Zeus because he was trying to protect Hera, or by Hera because she didn't want him because he didn't look perfect. And so, in the story where Hera was the one who rejected him, he got his revenge many years later. He made this beautiful gold throne, everything else. And of course, Hera sat down on it and it activated the trap in the throne, and she could not get off of the throne. And the gods are begging him to come back because no matter what they do, no matter what they try, they can't get her out of this chair. And he says, I have no mother, because she said she had no son. Now he had no mother, and he intended to leave her there. So Dionysus had to go and get him drunk and to bring him back. And eventually he lets her out of the chair, but it's kind of like that warning that if you don't treat this god well, there are going to be times when you're going to be very sorry. He's not malicious, but if you go out of your way to hurt him, he will return the favor. It may take many years, but he will return the favor. He's actually very sweet and kind and gentle, so he has to be really pushed if you take these stories as truth and not a metaphor. He has to really be pushed to want revenge because he's usually very sweet and gentle and he'll let things go. He can be, when you first meet him, a little scary because he is kind of loud. He is kind of loud. He's just working the forge and shouting orders. He can be a little bit scary, but once he realizes that you're just tiny, because I met him when I was like a little tiny thing, he's very gentle, he's very sweet, so he's very good with children, and he's very fond of kids, and he's very fond of women, obviously. And if you're genuinely kind and genuinely friend to him, you can go see him anytime you want, and he's a really good advisor because he's usually really good at sitting and observing and knowing what makes people tick. As an artist, he's a very good observer of human and divine nature. So if you're having problems with someone else, you can usually go to him and say, well, I'm having this problem and it's not working out. And he can give you useful advice. He's not one to feel sorry for himself. He can be not the happiest god at times, but he's not one to feel sorry for himself. He is one that, if he does take an interest in you and you're genuinely kind to him, you might find like little tiny unexpected gifts, little trinkets, but it's just kind of a Hephaestus way of saying hello. He does still have his tiny little statue. Odin was doing the thing where Odin was clearing Odin's territory, and it seemed like Hephaestus had lost interest in me, so there was one tiny thing for Hephaestus taken down. But he really doesn't care because in the long run, he still has a tiny little statue, and he really doesn't need, unlike some gods where, Loki would have your whole entire life and have a parade all to himself. He really doesn't need a lot of fancy worship. Yes, he had the cult center, so yeah, you can certainly have an altar and everything, but it's not vital to him. He would rather be involved in whatever kind of work you're doing, whether it's technology or it's, metalsmithing or whatever it is that you do, he would rather be with you. Now, he is obviously, since he's a god of the arts, he's a god of practicing until you perfect your art. This is not the god to, go take one class in pottery or something, you will be the perfect potter. No, it's like taking 20, 30, 40 years and trying to perfect your craft. Same thing for metalworking, everything else. He's a god of arts and crafts, so he's a god of things that take a very long time to master. And, that is a part of his personality. He usually does have that very patient personality. As for offerings, I mean, there are, you can find Greek lists, you can find, Greek Hellenistic religions, and they will tell you exactly this offering or that offering. If I found anything you give, he's really not, with me, that much interested in offerings. He's the one God that the most precious offering you can give him is actually spending time with him and actually listening to him and actually studying with him. We've often found that we really don't have. I do a lot of things in the arts, you could say. I do this channel and I do, playing with the games and I do like creative stuff, and but we've never found we really work on that level together. So we've both agreed that, if he feels a visit's in order, I'll kind of feel him getting into contact and we'll spend time together. But we don't have the relationship that we thought maybe we would have. We thought maybe he would become a more of a patron and oversee me in some kind of artistic vocation. And it just never happened. It's unfortunate it never happened because I really like him and he would be a wonderful patron to have because he can be very warm and loving towards his people. But Loki is Loki, and I think that little hawk's paw was out batting at people where it doesn't always belong. I go, hey, but it's okay. He's fine with it. Obviously, since I've always had health issues, I took to him from being a little girl, and he was the one god who was always sympathetic. And no god's ever made fun of me, but he was the one god you knew would not make fun of you. So people with health issues, especially people that maybe have a mobility problem or any other kind of problem, any kind of health issues, he has a tender spot for people like that. He's very kind and he's very gentle. I know the stories make him sound malicious or sneaky, and I know every time popular culture gets a hold of him, they make him look terrible, and he's not. He's very much a sweetheart. He's very much a god that it takes a long time to get him to come out of his shell, and Aphrodite's actually very good at getting him to do that. But once he does and he realizes you'll be a friend, he will be a friend with you. He's okay that we never settled into a patron god relationship. He's fine with that. It's kind of easier on us because I can visit him as a friend and we can work together. And if we don't work all the time, we know we have a good enough relationship that we'll go see him. Now, if you do start working with him, do understand he does get lonely because a lot of times people start working with Hephaestus and they work with him and they work with him until they get what they want and then they leave. Please do not do that. If you're going to work with Hephaestus and things don't work out, that's okay. He can part on good terms with you, but for the love of the gods, this is the one god. Don't just pick him up because you want something. He can be very kind and tender towards his people, but don't think you're going to pick up Hephaestus and think, and I've seen this logic before, Hephaestus, blacksmith, Rolex, riches for me. That is not how it works. It is not how it works. This is not the god of throw abundant riches at you. He is not the god of that. He is a god of being a good friend, though, and he is a god of being protective towards the people that have been genuinely kind to him. He can help you, even if he can't do healing for you, he can help you, learn, especially if you have limited mobility. There are times that I don't think I'm going to be getting out of bed that day, and I'll be like, Hephaestus, I think I'm broke this time. Is there anything you can do? And I will get the strength to at least get out of bed. And he will actually be the one that, some people have said that Segan's the one, or sometimes for me, it can be Odin or someone else. But Hephaestus is kind of like the nursemaid god, where if you're really sick and you're really hurt, it's in his nature to be kind and tender and gentle and want to repair things. So he's very much a god that if you're feeling sick and you're feeling run down, you can go to him and pray to him, and he will work with you. Has a very tender spot, I found with like any little orphan animals or anything else. If you look at his sacred story, some people will say that's because he knows what it's like and he was taken in and loved, so he will usually be the first god to, take others in and love them and be kind to them. So, he's a beautiful god to work with, especially for women. I find out that he's protective and he's nurturing, and he will give you really good advice, and he can be very empowering for women to work with because out of all the gods, he's like, there goes the clock, so he's helping. Out of all the gods, he's, highly intelligent. He has sophistication, and he's, working in technologies and everything else. Yeah, he still has all the time you need to talk to you. When we first started working together, he wasn't sure and he didn't always have time, but as your relationship goes on, he's one of those gods that he will drop whatever he's doing and he will come and he will spend time with you and he will talk to you. He's usually busy when I visit him. I think he works way too hard. I really do, and I worry about him. He's adorable, ladies. He's to me, he's very handsome. I don't know what other people see, but I've always seen this very handsome gentleman that works at the forge or, whatever capacity he's working in. Anything you do today, like if you were a mechanic or anything else, if it moves and it works, he will be there working with you on it. And if it's artistic, he will be there with you too. So, if you guys like what you see, like, comment, and subscribe. But I really wanted to get his Hephaestus something in. He did have cults at one time. He still has worshippers. But, for the love of the gods, please be tender and gentle with him. So, I will see you guys later. Bye bye.